Hey, good morning, everybody. It's good to be here. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to C3, West Michigan's inclusive spiritual community. I'm Kent Dobson. Oh man, happy November. I've been making these talks on my porch, which is a 3-season porch. It's getting colder. Uh, all the leaves have fallen off my black walnut trees and the elms. And yeah, the turning of the season, the turning of the tide. And today I want to start a new word. So if you're just joining us, or maybe this is the first time you're listening, I'm beginning a year-long series which I've called Meaning Matters, 12 Words, 12 Months. And I want to just take a word each month. Last month was wonder. And for the month of November, the word is exploration. And I just want to hover around that word. What does it have to teach us? What does it have to reveal to us? How might it work on us? What little cracks might it open in who we think we are or how we see the world? What kind of person do you want to be? And specifically with the word exploration, what kind of person do you want to be in the world? Do you want to be a kind of person that explores and just in terms of direct translation, investigates or searches out or cries out, or there was one other definition that I read, to make flow, which I love, to make flow, to unlock something and let it move again. And there's something about this word exploration that I think invites us into a big picture of the universe right now, a big picture of the world, a big picture of our nation, a big picture of our state and our city and our families. It's the kind of word that says, look carefully, open up your eyes, seek something out. So that's what I want to talk about today. And for the next month, that's what we'll be hovering around. So today I want to read a poem, part of a poem, big surprise. I'm always reading poems. Part of a TS Eliot poem. And I want to ask a few questions. So that's where we're going. Again, thanks for joining us. Thank you, the regular C3ers. Thanks for showing up each week. Thanks for supporting the community. Thanks for supporting us financially. Thanks for lending your voice to the collective voice. What does it mean to us to be us? What does it mean to be a kind of 21st century spiritual community right now in such a time of upheaval and also possibility? And maybe that's something just to hold. Upheaval and possibility, especially in the age of bad news. That's what I can kind of call it now. In other words, the news. So, okay, here's my first question this morning. What are the limits of human consciousness? When I was in high school, I remember I had a teacher who said something like, we use about, I think she said 10% of the human brain. And that like disturbed me, like 10%, what does she mean? And who is the one, I don't know if I was this sophisticated, but who is the one that's using 10%? Does the other 90% get unused? And do we have access to that? Does the I, meaning me, I guess the ego, have access to that 90%? Anyway, what are the limits of human consciousness? And what are the limits of human knowledge? I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable, the exponential growth of human knowledge right now. We're inheriting this, and also experience the constant explosion of information and insight and study and statistics and new life. And it's almost too much to bear. I mean, if you take 2 million years of human evolution, not to mention 14.5 billion years of the existence of the universe, and you come to the very last 0.000 millisecond of all that, and that's the present moment that we're in. And most of that took place at the pace of evolution, whatever that means. Relatively slowly. What was the difference between someone who lived 50,000 years ago and 5,000 years ago? Well, there were some differences. I'm a student of history, of course. But the differences between how we're living right now and 50 years ago, I mean, it's almost mind-blowing. We have been to the moon, which our ancestors have been staring at for 2 million years. It's unbelievable. Unless, of course, you think that's a conspiracy filmed in the deserts of New Mexico and as a kind of government trick on the Russians. Who knows? So, what are the limits of human consciousness? What are the limits of human knowledge? We live in a solar system, and that solar system is part of a galaxy. And that galaxy we call the Milky Way. Something we learned in 3rd grade. And I at least try to see the Milky Way at least once a year. Trying to find a place that's less polluted by light. And if we shrink that galaxy, if we shrink the Milky Way down to the size of a pea, like a little green pea. So imagine a moment, a little green pea, which is our galaxy. And inside that tiny pea, in one tiny, tiny, tiny corner is the solar system we find ourselves in. And in that solar system, in one tiny, 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 tiny corner is the Earth. And in that tiny corner of the tiny Earth is your tiny place in the world, Okay, so we shrink that galaxy down to the size of a pea. And then we say, well, how many galaxies are there? How many peas are there? And as best we can tell right now, which may change and may grow, we could fill a stadium, a football stadium, with little green peas, with galaxies. Yeah. What are the limits of human knowledge? What are the limits of human consciousness? What does the massive exploration of human knowledge, what's the point of it? What do we gain from it? Or as I said last week, whom does it serve? That's the big question of the Grail story. Whom does the Grail serve? Same with the kind of explosion of insight about the universe. And we are just scratching the surface. That's what's so amazing to me, about what I'm attempting to say here. It's like we know so little, and it's like we know so much. It's like the edge of wonder again. What kind of person do you want to be in the world? Do you want to be an explorer? One who continues until their last breath on the path of seeking something out, of investigating and searching out? What if we went to the symphony and we heard, I don't know, Brahms' German Requiem, which is stunning. And at the end we said, we've done it. We've done it. No more need for music in the world. We did it. We succeeded. No more need. Or I went to Rome a couple of years ago and stood in line at the Vatican, and went through hallway after hallway after hallway of very strange art, by the way. The Vatican is like a carnival, a carnival of art. And I finally got to the Sistine Chapel, and there's no way, well, I shouldn't put this on everyone. For me, at least, there was no way to stand there and not be in a state of amazement. I mean, what is this? Who made this? Why did they make this? What is the story that's being told here? But what if I walked out and said, we're done. We're done. No more art. We don't need any more. It's all finished. We've reached the pinnacle. Close the schools. It's over. Or the last piece of data, what if this is the last person we will ever elect in a few days? What if we had that attitude about life? This is the last person we will ever elect. We, the collective. Or the last dance we will ever dance. Or we don't need to engage anymore. We've done it. See, it sounds silly and ridiculous what I'm saying. Why would we want to live like that? But sometimes I think we're tempted to live like that. To cease our exploration. And a word like exploration just calls to us. Really? Really? You want to stop now? I live in a house that was built in 1850. And the funny thing about old farmhouses is that they're a hodgepodge, because the 1850 portion of the house was very tiny, no centralized heat. And someone came along and added an addition. And someone came along after that and added an addition. And now I'm living here. 1850, it's an old house. And what's my contribution? What if I moved in and said, I'm done. This house is it's finished, that's it. In a way, it doesn't even feel like mine if I don't find that spirit of exploration here. Even something simple like painting a room. Or I've been working on the garage. My wife had an idea to turn part of the garage into a little mini guest space. And it was kind of 2 years in the making, meaning I procrastinated for about 2 years. And over the last couple of weeks, I just, have been working on it. And it feels like, yeah, okay. It suddenly, on the one hand, feels more like mine. Once you take a wall off and see what's behind it. And I guess see what's hidden. And put your own sweat into something. First of all, it feels more like a home. And it also feels like what I'm talking about, the spirit of exploration. How do I want to be in the world? Do I just want to kick back and as if I'm just going to rest on everything that I've inherited from my ancestors and my parents and the culture and society? Or do I want to be a contributing person? And to be a contributing person is to explore, is to seek out, it's to search, it's to orient yourself toward the possibility. After all, what are the limits of human consciousness? What are the limits of human knowledge? That's not to say, and let me plant a seed for next week. That's not to say that exploration is always good. It may have a dark side. In fact, it does have a dark side, which I want to talk about next week. But right now, let's leave that aside. I'm talking about the spirit, the way we're oriented in the world, that sort of thing. So here's a suggestion. This is homework. Everybody loves homework. So here's some homework. Make a list, first a short list, of everyone that you deeply admire. And you could even ask, that seems to embody the spirit of exploration. Make a list of them, a short list. And then look at that list, part 2, and try to find someone on there that you are particularly drawn to, like they really hook you in a positive way. It's like, if I could only be like that sort of thing. So once you identify that person, you don't have to make too much of this. Don't work too hard. Just allow yourself to be drawn to that person. Step 3, make a list of everything you deeply admire about that person. And perhaps their spirit of exploration, how they embodied that spirit. Or, well, to be short, what was their way of being in the world? How did they orient themselves to the world? How do we even know their name? I mean, after all. But this could be someone well-known, famous, an author, someone from your own family, a friend, it doesn't matter. Just someone that you deeply admire. And then you look at that list of characteristics and ask yourself, what is my way of embodying these things? Is there something about this person's spirit of exploration, I might say, that calls to my own? Because it's very easy, I think, especially with kind of, I guess, heroes or heroines, something like that, to say, well, they did it. Kind of like saying, well, Brahms, Beethoven, Bach, they kind of finished music, so I'm just gonna, that's it, no more. That's very easy to put it on the hero or the heroine and to not embody something that is maybe ours to carry. That's what I'm poking around at. And ask yourself, why am I drawn to this? Is there a way that I can say yes to this particular nuance, I guess would be one way of saying it. What's my way of carrying this? So I did this week. I thought, well, if I'm going to ask people to do this, I better do it myself. So I made a list, and on my list was Carl Jung, which should be no surprise because I keep quoting from him. And why am I quoting from him? I'm not just getting on the computer and like Googling Carl Jung quotes to sound fancy. For some reason, I've been drawn to him in the last few years, and I've been really doing a deep dive and reading straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And it's been thrilling, it's kind of felt a little like when I first got into biblical studies, and particularly Judaism, the rabbis, first century stuff. It's like I couldn't stop. And that's kind of how I've felt the last 3 years, particularly with Carl Jung. And I'm sure, in time I might be drawn to someone else. So I made a list of what are the things. And the things that I felt particularly drawn to about him, besides sayings and maps and quotes and things like that, is that he courageously left the confines of social identity. And he did that by breaking up with Freud. And Freud was a mentor. He was older than Jung, and the most well-known psychoanalyst in the world at the time, in a booming and exploding brand new scientifically oriented discipline. And Jung himself was a doctor leading into this, and then was being courted and groomed and shaped by Freud and Freudian analysis, but there was something about it that didn't sit quite right. So he had the courage to break from social conformity and pleasing this father-like figure, and he nearly had a nervous breakdown. And some would say he did have a nervous breakdown. But there was something about that, like, all right, just for me personally, social conformity is kind of easy to say yes to. Do I have the courage to break with that in pursuit of something? And am I willing to even have a breakdown because of it? Do you see what I'm saying about what is it about this person that calls to me in some way and might be my way of exploring? And I want to be that kind of person, and in some small ways, I've been through some of that, not to the extent that Jung went through, but I just mean breaking with the the confines of social conformity and suffering the personal and social consequences of that. So that's what I mean. Hovering around that. And here's another thing. Jung also had the courage to go into his unconscious, go into the unconscious realms, to do his own exploring. So at the time when most of the scientific pursuits were going outward, like the modernist pursuit of knowledge out there, he was going inward. And this kind of inner and outer have these two poles that I think are incredibly important for the 21st century. As far as we go out, we ought to go in. And I don't just mean into the psyche, I do mean that, but also into brain science and chemistry and chemicals and synapses and DNA and internal and external, external. Anyway, not only did he have the courage to go into the psyche in a kind of fresh way, he also had the courage to be self-critical. What he found in there was not all beauty and goodness and light, but also a lot of darkness and shadow and a lot of his own complexes. And I want to be that kind of person. I want to have the courage to look inside and to be honest about what's in there, even if it's not so pretty. So that's what I mean. So using your own heroes and their own journey of exploration to challenge us on our own. That's what I'm suggesting in this little exercise. So let me read some TS Eliot. I made a little teaser video for the C3 community, and I read this poem on the teaser, so I just want to read it again. And I'll make a few comments or questions, and then we'll kind of call it a day. Home is where one starts from. Home is where one starts from. Home is where one starts from. As we grow older, the world becomes stranger. God, I wish it was different, but it's not. As we grow older, the world becomes stranger, the pattern more complicated of dead and living. Not the intense moment isolated, with no before and after, but a lifetime burning in every moment. And not the lifetime of one man only, but of old stones that cannot be deciphered. There is a time for evening under the starlight, under the cosmos, under the Milky Way. There is a time for the evening under the starlight, a time for the evening under the lamplight, the evening with the photograph album. Love is most nearly itself, where here and now cease to matter. Love is most nearly itself when here and now cease to matter. Old men ought to be explorers. Old men ought to be explorers. Here and there does not matter. We must be still and still moving. We must be still and still moving into another intensity for a further union, a deeper communion through the dark, cold, and empty desolation. The wave cry, the wind cry, the vast waters of the petrel and the porpoise. In the end is my beginning. This is from East Coker, which is a section of the four quartets of T.S. Eliot. Read it yourself sometime. It's the kind of poem that is so rich and so dense, it's like a lifetime burning in every word or every phrase. And what I'm drawn to just now is that line, old men, and T.S. Eliot is, his span was 1909 to 1962, his published works here. So men was just meant men and women, humanity, humankind. Old, human ones, old men, old women, ought to be explorers. What kind of insight is this? Because you'd think it would be the opposite. Chill, take it easy. But he's saying something else. He's saying the elder leads the way in exploration. And maybe has the capacity to feel and sense the lifetime burning in every moment, where here and now doesn't matter all that much. Old men, old women ought to be explorers. The elder of us ought to be explorers, ought to be seeking and searching and leading out the possibility of the future. You know, like I said in my little teaser talk, there's a lovely poetic line from the Bible that says, the elders will dream dreams. The elders will dream dreams. To me, that's profound, because we think about it in the opposite way. The young people are the ones with the dreams. Well, there's a certain kind of dream you have as a young person, and there's a certain kind of vision I think you have as an older person. You might have dreams as a young person, but I'm talking about vision, that kind of exploration. How do you want to live the years remaining? How do I want to live the years remaining? Do I want to live on the edge of exploration? And I'm not saying it can all be Galileo or TS Eliot or Carl Jung. I just mean in our own small worlds. To continue to seek out, to search out, because that's, I think, what's contagious. This going out, the further expansion of what really matters. The further expansion of what really matters. As if the sum total up to this point is not enough. Because it's not. It's part of the human spirit to keep going, to keep dreaming dreams, to keep exploring. I think something of us, I don't know what, but something of us outlives death. And I'm not trying to get into an argument about, is there an afterlife? Is there not an afterlife? I don't know. I haven't been there. You haven't been there. None of us have been